Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and just like the Arsenal machine says in Zombies, we've got good news and bad news. Bad news is, there ain't no good news, but seriously, I think this may actually be some good news long-term for the COD franchise, but it's really bad news for Activision, because a few days after Christmas, during the holiday break, with a double XP event active, Call of Duty has now surpassed its own record downfall by hitting 40% players lost during the last month. Now, mind you, Call of Duty encompasses Black Ops 6, Warzone, Modern Warfare 3, and I believe Modern Warfare 2, so 4 total games, and they still lost 40% of their player base. And speaking of Warzone, that's going to be the footage for this video here today because I already had it recorded. Honestly, I don't feel like hopping on and recording more multiplayer stuff tonight. It's been a good day so far of watching football. That Bengals-Broncos game was insane, and I don't want to spoil the good mood I'm in. Plus, I actually got some kills in this match, so hopefully you guys will all enjoy. But like I was saying, Black Ops 6 and Call of Duty in general is pretty down bad right now. If we want to ignore the fact that 40% of the player base has left on Steam for a second, let's compare the situation to Modern Warfare 2, which was quite a disastrous game in and of itself. Compared to Modern Warfare 2 in December of 2022, Black Ops 6 has 34% less players in December of 2024. Black Ops 6, you know, the return of Treyarch, the Black Ops universe, round-based zombies, and the moving away from Warzone 2.0 is only performing 2/3 as good as Modern Warfare 2. Soak that in for a second, and it's even falling on console as well. I've said time and time again that trends on one platform are going to be happening on all other platforms as well, to greater or lesser extents, and Call of Duty has dropped from the number 2 most popular game on console to number 3, being surpassed by the NBA 2K games, when interest in the actual NBA seems to be dwindling as well. What with all the three-point shots and the lack of variety between games and teams, I mean, hell, this past Christmas, which is considered a basketball holiday, the NFL hosted some games and they had almost 5 times the viewership as compared to the NBA, and the NBA video games are currently outperforming Call of Duty. It's clear that COD is in trouble right now. The game still does have a good amount of players, that silent, casual majority that they cater everything to. They're still signing in and playing, but the trickle-down effect of years of manipulation is finally catching up to Activision. Their games don't work. Their anti-cheat doesn't work. The games are all buggy messes at launch and only get properly polished right before the next game comes out, which makes it pretty much all for none, and skill-based matchmaking alienates the player base from the tippy top all the way down to the very bottom of the basement. If you guys have any stories about this, please share them down there in the comments because I am interested to hear them, and I want to say this: skill-based matchmaking only benefits the worst of the worst who don't have any friends to play with. That is it. And that may sound mean, like I'm trying to pick on these people or whatever, but if you're not good at the game, you can't play with anyone else unless they're equally new or as equally bad at the game as you are. During the launch of Black Ops 6, my cousin reached out to me wanting to play. He picked up Black Ops 6, he was having a good time with it, the first COD he's played in years, he's actually enjoying it, and mind you, this is the guy that got me into COD in the first place. If you don't know your Nero lore, my cousin was the one that got me in the COD in the first place. I go over to his house one day, he has Call of Duty 3, he lets me play around a little bit, and then that coming Christmas, I end up getting Call of Duty 4, I end up playing with him and my buddy Tyler online, and then the rest is history. Without this guy, there would be no NerosCinema. So he reached out, he wanted to play, and after about an hour of playing with us in our lobbies, he has not asked to play with us ever since that day, and he slowly quit the game. I don't think he's signed in over the course of the past month or so, seemingly like everybody else. It sounds mean, it really does, but he just could not compete in our lobbies. By definition, he's the target audience of COD now. Mid-30s, father, full-time job, games with his son, and sometimes by himself when he has the spare time. He's the target audience, and when he plays COD in his lobbies, he does just fine. The game is fun. When he joins our lobbies, he's at the bottom of the list every single match, and there is absolutely nothing fun about the game for him at all. If this were like the old days, before Activision decided to ruin the social aspect of COD with AI-controlled voice moderation and skill-based matchmaking, then he would have no issue playing with me or anybody in our friend group. It would just be a case of us getting into a lobby with random people, some of which are amazing, some of which who are awful, and everything in between. It wouldn't be reasonable for him to expect to lead every single lobby, but at least there would be some variance in gameplay, and he wouldn't be forced to be the lowest ranked player in the game simply because he's playing with us in our very tight and competitive skill-based matchmaking bracket. The same is true of my brother's girlfriend. She tried playing the game with us because she likes shooter games. She's played a ton of Overwatch in the past, and my brother was playing so much Black Ops 6, and obviously I was playing a bunch of it as well, so she wanted to play with us in our friend group and everything. She joined up with us, and after that day, we never got to play with her again. Just like my cousin, she ended up quitting the game solely because of the fact that she, as a new player, could not play this casual, keyword there, casual, fictional online shooter game with her boyfriend and his friends because Activision said, fuck you, no fun for you, go play by yourself, right? The matchmaking system breaks everything. You cannot play with your friends and family with skill-based matchmaking if you're a decent player, and I'm sure tons of you out there have had the same experience ever since skill-based matchmaking took over. The social aspect of COD is dead. You can only play the game with other people if they are the same skill level as you. That is it. If they're casual players, or if they're new to the game, or maybe they're coming back after a long hiatus, then they're forced to be put into your lobbies where they're the worst person in the lobby every single game and just getting shit stomped, and that's not a fun experience at all. Why would they subject themselves to that? And more to the point, why would they even try to improve at the game, knowing damn well that the game shifts the goalpost, and the better you get, the lobbies will dynamically update match after match to make sure that no matter what, your lobby is always as sweaty as humanly possible. It sucks for Activision, but they are finally reaping what they have sowed. This skill-based matchmaking experiment, especially with the way they've handled it, finally seems to be backfiring, and it's hitting them harder than ever before. At the time of this video being recorded, which mind you is at about 8:30 p.m. on a Saturday, just a few days after Christmas, during the holiday break, during a double XP event for crying out loud, Call of Duty isn't even in the top 10 of games on Steam. That should be pretty telling right there. And the game, of course, is still pretty popular on console by being in the top 3, but literally, like, where's the competition even? Like, on Xbox right now, Rainbow Six Siege is number 4, and I don't think anybody would be arguing that Rainbow is at the top of its game right now, and it's absolutely popping off and peaking. You know, the fact that Rainbow is so high just goes to show that people are so spread out on console as compared to just playing a handful of games. I know we've talked about it in the past, but hopefully this will be the kick in the pants that Activision needs to make some meaningful change to the Call of Duty franchise. It's such a simple formula, so let me just lay out the game plan here. Step 1, remove skill-based matchmaking entirely and go back to how the game was handled during the golden days. Step 2, reinvest in your servers. Call of Duty should be running on incredibly high tick rate servers to have amazing stability. Like, I'm not even joking, lag in COD was better back in the day when it was peer-to-peer. I remember I had a connection in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. My speed was 8 down, 2 up, and I would pull host all the time. Like, how have connections gotten so much worse with all the advancements in technology? It doesn't make any sense. Like, upgrade the servers, stop being cheap, and you're going to see a return on the investment. I promise you, Activision, Microsoft, Activision, whoever, I promise you, reinvest in the servers, you will make your money back. Step number 3, quit using AI and hire some real artists and reinvest some of your shop bundle money into making the game better. And step 4, figure out your anti-cheat and find a way to make it work across multiple titles instead of starting from scratch with each new year. Now, obviously, there's a ton of other things I can add to the list here, but I don't think it's hyperbole to say that nearly all of the problems with Call of Duty would be fixed with those 4 simple steps right there. I once heard something to the effect of the only real problems in life are emotional and occasionally medical, because pretty much everything else is solved with money. Well, as of yesterday, Microsoft's net worth is $3.2 trillion with a T dollars. I think they can afford to reinvest some of the profit they have made from COD back into the game, and by doing so, the game will generate even more money. Instead of using AI and laying off people to spend as little money as possible while trying to squeeze out as much money as possible, how about you go through and just put out a good product, and that good product will be the reason why you start making more money. Let me tell you from experience that being as cheap as possible does not work, and I'm going to wrap this video up here with a bit of Nero lore as well as a perfect example of ruining your business to save a couple pennies. So those of you who follow the live streams know that I bartended there for about a half a year or so. It was a side job just for some extra cash while still, of course, doing YouTube and live streaming, and that bar was an absolute train wreck. I knew that going in. It went from being one of the most popular bars in my town, being so busy that they used to have a beer pong night, and there were so many people that wanted to go to that beer pong night that they couldn't fit them all in the buildings. They had to break up beer pong night into 2 separate days because they were just so popular. But by the time I got there, it was already a ghost town, and it had been a ghost town for quite some time. I was always curious about the downfall of this bar, and I witnessed firsthand all the things that they did wrong and how they drove away all of their customers. For starters, they were cheap as hell. I understand that from a business perspective, especially if your business is really struggling, that you're going to try to save every cent, but it became a situation where they were spending dollars to save pennies. And here's an example of that. A popular shot around here, at least in my town, maybe where you guys are at as well, is something we call a blue cherry bomb. It's blueberry Red Bull with a shot of cherry rum. Well, Red Bull obviously is pretty expensive. I get that. So you pour the drink and then you put the can in the cooler, and then when they come up and get another shot, you take the can out, you pour it in, there you go. Well, there would be times where I would go 2 or 3 shifts in between somebody ordering that shot. And if I opened a new can of Red Bull to make their drink, the owners and everybody would get all pissed off at me because I'm supposed to use the can that that was already opened. So we're charging $4.50 for a shot, and I'm supposed to give them 3-day-old flat Red Bull. Well, gee, I wonder why it's the most popular shot in town, but it only gets ordered a few times a week at our bar. People would be buying shots left and right, but they know that a lot of our mixers are likely at least a day or two old and flat and flavorless, so they don't order shots at our bar. Again, we're spending dollars to save pennies here. Sure, you want to save some money on Red Bull, but you're making it so people don't ever even buy the Red Bull to begin with. You're shooting yourself in the foot. Another example would be the wings. I feel like I'm just venting about an old job I had, but this is a pretty good example as well. So we were a pretty busy wing spot in town, and one day the other guy comes in for his shift as my shift is about to be ending, but I'm over there in the kitchen because of course I had to bartend and cook and everything. And so I'm making up these people's wings right before my shift ends, and he comes into the kitchen and starts yelling at me for making sure that this lady's wet ranch wings had ranch on both sides. The idea was put ranch in a container, shake it all up with the wings inside, therefore wet ranch. The entire wing is covered in ranch. Well, he told me that the boss says we're just supposed to drizzle Hidden Valley over the top of the plain wings and then send them out. What the fuck? Who is ever going to come back and eat at our bar when they order wet ranch wings and we give them plain wings with a little Hidden Valley drizzled on the top of them? I did the math. Those wings cost $15 for a dozen, and in an effort to save literally 35 cents worth of ranch dressing, we push those customers out who will never come back. It's a small town. Word spreads. They're likely going to be telling all their friends and family about how our food sucks and how cheap we are and how they should never go to our bar. You guys see what I'm saying here, right? We are spending dollars to save pennies. That $15 dozen wings, we got rid of that entirely because we want to save 35 cents on ranch. Cutting corners and being cheap eventually is going to hit the quality of the product, and people are going to stop purchasing that product over time. The same is very clearly true with Call of Duty, so reinvesting in good servers, a good anti-cheat, and removing skill-based matchmaking, in my mind, will bring back so many players that have left, and that hype is going to bring in so many new players. People will finally be able to play with their friends and family again, regardless of skill level, and Call of Duty will finally be great and be back on top once again, or at least in my mind, that's how it would all work. But the problem is we're talking about Activision and Microsoft, so the chances of that happening are pretty slim to none. But with them losing all of these players, I suppose anything is possible, ladies and gentlemen. But for right now, I'm going to wrap up this video here today. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Leave your thoughts and feedback on this historic downfall of Call of Duty down there in the comments. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.